Hello and welcome to episode 9 of us building Pairi Daiza. We are only one episode away from this 10th milestone episode, which is the furthest I've ever built on a YouTube series, and I'm looking forward to keeping the building going and really finishing this park. Today we are going to build a lot of aviaries, as you can see here, but since there are no birds in Planet 2 yet, we are gonna focus mostly on the camel habitat, which are dromedaries in real life, and the lunch and nature area in front of the Nautilus, which is going to be the focus of next episode. And that is a building full of aquariums. It's looking so good in real life. I'm hoping to be able to recreate it with exhibits, but we'll see about that in the next episode. What you've seen here is the large central aviary next to the camels, of which I didn't completely finish the roof. I'm hoping for a birds DLC one day, which will hopefully bring us some form of roofing, so I don't have to fill the roof with rope completely, which is a huge pain. It takes so much time and it's a really annoying process with a lot of mistakes happening, and I just couldn't be bothered with finishing it since there won't be any animals into it anyways. Until there are birds in the game, at which point I hope to get some metal roofing or something that could fit in there well. About this camel habitat, I'm really happy how it turned out. I had a few rather bad pictures from the habitat, but all that I could see I added to the build, and then with some fantasy it worked out quite well. And the camels seem happy enough, so that's quite nice too. The central building has a custom feeder station similar to the one I built in the llama habitat from episode 4, so go and check that out if you haven't watched that episode already. The next topic of today's build is the picnic area. There's some small shops with snacks and beverages and a lot of picnic benches, as you can see on the bottom right now. So I believe you can sit there without ordering anything with your own lunch, which is always nice since I'm used to packing my own lunch wherever I go. So now let's get straight into building, and the first thing we're building is just a lot of hedges, since on all the pictures I saw there were just a lot of hedges around the path, which is just something to wall it off, and it's quite usual in any zoo or any park you ever go to. The thing that I miss in Planet 2 is that there's only these really green hedges and there's no color variation in them. I would have hoped to be able to build some yellow hedges or something that could look like they're a bit withered and it's almost autumn or something like that, which would it would give it a lot more detail and a lot more realism, I guess. I'm not gonna bother you with the complete building process of the hedges because that took way too long for what it actually was, and the constant height adjustments and stuff like that is just very boring to watch. So we'll move on to the creation of the aviaries, which is a lot more fun, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of that, even though there aren't any birds in there. I really love how they turned out with the hanging branches and stuff. So what you see me do is you see me use this archer, which is an idea coming from Planet Coaster, which has been recreated customly in Planet 2, which I think is really handy just to get an idea of how tall the guests are. So if you don't use that archer while building in Planet 2, do go and download that. I'll link it in the description below so you can find it in the Steam Workshop, and do use it. It's very useful, especially if there are no guests around to look at. And I use it all the time just to get an idea how tall my building should be, or how high the height difference should be if special terrain or something like that. It's very neat to use. For the aviaries, I'm using the mesh barriers all around, which is usually what you see in aviaries too, so birds can grab onto it on the sides. Of course you can see through it and the birds can escape. So, I mean, there's a lot of neat features about these mesh barriers, and I really think they look awesome in Planet 2. I'm happy that they added these, and I'm hoping that one day they'll add a mesh roofing too, because that would be awesome to use. For now, I only built these aviaries on this side of the path, but later, when I will add the habitat of Tianbao, one of Pairi Daiza's pandas, I'll add some staff area to the back of it as well, out of sight, so it'll be you can't see it and the guests won't be negatively affected in Planet 2, but it's gonna be very useful to add some extra staff features, because the staff have been complaining sometimes that they can't find a staff room near enough or it's just too far to walk, so I'll be adding that later in here as well. For building multiple of these aviaries, I'm using the blueprint feature in Planet 2, which is absolutely awesome. I will add one blueprint of an aviary to the Steam Workshop as well, so be sure to check that out if you're interested to add these in your zoos. I'll be adding the link to that in the description below, of course. And in between these aviaries there's always some bushes, which I added here too, and in this case I'm using a very big one, so it will be filled all at once, but later you'll see me use smaller trees and lower them down so they won't stick through the mesh barrier itself, which I think looks quite a lot better. You also see me adding the path here for the staff, which will later be a staff area, but I didn't add yet because I wasn't 100% sure on the size of the habitat for Tianbao. So that will be for a later episode, probably episode 12 or 13 I think, will be the focus of that. With these aviaries added, let's add some nature to them. So while I start building that nature inside the aviaries, however, I'll show you some pictures of what they look like in real life. I tried to make the Planet Zoo versions looking as much as the real thing, which I think turned out quite okay. Especially the hanging branches are something I'm quite fond of because I think they are something quite neat compared to the standing ones which you see all around. Having them hanging so birds can sit on them is something quite else, and I quite like it. Especially because you can reproduce it easily with different types of branches, and even if you just use the same branch but you turn it around a little bit, it already looks quite different, and I mean that is something that is quite neat and quite awesome. So next we're adding some plants. I'm using a variety of plants, both tropical, desert plants, some smaller trees as well. You'll see me just add a lot of variety to it because I think that's, I mean, in the real deal there's quite a lot of different plants as well, and it needs to look a little bit like a variety of tropical plants, but then again there needs to be space for the birds to fly, and I think in total when you look at the complete thing it turned out quite okay, which is quite nice. And then what I noticed in the pictures as well, there's a lot of dead branches for the birds to sit on, which is something that I added to, because I quite like it as well. And then on some of the backs you'll see me add some plaster walls, mostly dark ones, because I think that's because there's a staff area behind it, or staff can enter through it. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think that's why they did it, so you wouldn't be able to look straight through them, and that's what I added here too. And I think it gives it quite a nice effect because it's a little darker in there as well compared to when it's completely open, which I think is quite good as well, especially if you're adding birds to it. Because if you could see straight through them, you'll probably be distracted by what's happening on the back of it and stuff like that, so I think it's quite a good thing here. My first plan was to just build one aviary complete with nature and then copy them, but when I was thinking more about it, I didn't want them to be completely the same. And now that I've built them, I'm even happier that I took the time to add nature to each one of them, so they wouldn't be all the same. Even though I'm mostly using the same plants over and over again, they still look quite different each one, and that's quite nice how it turned out. So right now I'm starting with the dromedary habitat, or camels in Planet Zoo. I skipped over building the entire wall around it because, I mean, it's quite a tedious process and it's not really fun to look at. So let's jump to the moment that the camels are added and it's a complete habitat, and we can start building on that habitat. So I think to start with I added 4 camels because that's all I could buy at that moment, which, I mean, I think the habitat is a little big for 4 camels. I think there are 9 or 8 as I looked it up in Planet Zoo or in Pairi Daiza real life. So I'll be adding more later, I think, but for now let's focus on the building. So there's a small building in the middle of the habitat in real life as well, which has just a feeder station, and I think the dromedaries can lay behind it if it's too hot or something. There's also a big tree in the middle of the habitat, so they do have shade enough, which is quite nice, especially because it's getting a lot warmer, it seems, in recent summers. So I'm happy for them, even though they're probably used to it. But I mean, a little shade can't be bad, right? So I'm adding this as well, mostly from a few pictures I had. I'll add some pictures to the bottom right as well, so you can see what it looks like in real life. The only thing I'm really missing here is that there's a big tree on the side of the habitat, so not inside the habitat, which has an enormous branch running through the building, which is looking quite nice in real life, but I couldn't add that here because the tree just wasn't available. So at first you see me building this huge round habitat, but then later I decided I think this looks more like in real life. There's a little bit of a corner cut out of it, and then on the side of that there's a little information board in real life as well, which I'm adding right now, I think. Oh, so first I'm going around to add some bins and benches so people can sit and throw their trash around, because I feel like, I don't know if it's gotten worse lately, but people are just throwing their trash everywhere, and there's a lot of bins needed everywhere, even though there isn't a shop nearby at the moment. So let's focus on the trash and more focus on this information board I'm building. So for this information board, I'm just using the painted wooden planks, which are really nice to use. There are so many colors, and they look quite how they need to be. And I'm giving them the same color as the sticks I used for the habitat perimeter. And then on this side, you'll see me add a little bit of a roof to just hold some rain, I guess. I'm not 100% sure what else it could be used for. Maybe for a little bit of shade so you could read better. I mean, there's probably various reasons for it to have a little bit of a roof. And then you'll see me add the same color later, but then later I'll change the color as well to some other color I found which looked way better. Because I mean, right now the branches I used are still quite dark, and I think they should be a little bit lighter. Right here I'm adding a lot of educational speakers, which I don't think there are in Pairi Daiza in real life, but for Planet Zoo it really helps. So I'm just adding them just to be sure and make the guests happy, I guess. There is a lot of education though in Pairi Daiza, but it's just not through speakers. It's mostly using these boards, and that's what I'm doing as well. So I'm adding little bits of detail to it, for which you've seen the complete end result in the beginning of this episode. So the next thing as well, what we're doing is just add some more detail, making it really pretty at the end. There's not too much in this habitat. It's just a lot of trees, some little buildings, some hedges, and that's it. So I mean, the dromedaries don't need too much, or the camels, they don't really need too much like extra stuff or a lot of nature. They're really content with open space, and they don't really need too much shade either. So after placing down these small extra trees with a little bit of grass into it, let's focus on the new area, which is the picnic area, which is not gonna be too detailed. I mean, in real life Pairi Daiza, there is just a lot of benches and small shops. Even the shops don't have that much detail or like any ads to them. So I'm not adding too much. There's a little bit of a shade cover here as well. And mostly it's just gonna be benches, a lot of nature so people can walk through it. I added these paths with these bollards, which I'm quite sad that Planet Zoo doesn't have paths without bollards, but then again I understand it, because otherwise you'd lose track of where people could walk. And then on these shops I'm just using the new Australian wall with a slate roof, which looks quite nice and quite like it is in real life. And then I'm adding 2 of these because that's what I saw on the pictures as well. So for this area, there is a little bit of a lake in front of the Nautilus. I'm using these walls just to measure how wide it should be, and I used Google Maps to see the width of the oval shaped pool, or not really a pool, it's just a small lake. And then you see me using these nature paths, and then later I'll add some reeds to it and a little bit of nature all around, just to make it a little bit more beautiful and a little bit more realistic. And people can actually walk through this nature, which I think is quite nice, because that's how it is in real life Pairi Daiza as well. You can walk through that nature and you're allowed to walk on the grass. So for this next minute or so, we're just gonna add a lot more nature, so it's gonna be looking a lot better than it is now, because now it's just a little bit of a sandy and grassy place without any detail. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the music for the next minute or so. And if you haven't already, do like this video. I appreciate it a lot, and it really helps the channel. And if you haven't subscribed already, do that as well. I build at least 1 episode a week, so my schedule is quite heavy at the moment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep adding 1 video a week, not gonna go to a schedule of 2. And if there's a second episode released on Wednesday, then it's just gonna be an extra thing, and it's not gonna be a constant thing. It's like the episodes are still gonna come out on Saturday as usual, but there's not gonna be a guaranteed second episode a week. But at least 1 episode, so guys, I hope you really enjoy these videos, and I'm gonna keep doing them because I really enjoy it. So the next thing we're gonna be building is the central aviary, which is the only real place that still needs decoration right now. And I hadn't been there to see last time because we were running so out of time at the time we passed this area. We wanted to go into the Nautilus, which is a huge building, but for that we were like, I think it was 3 past 7 and you're allowed to enter the building until 7, I think. So it was really a bummer because the Nautilus is an awesome building to visit. But then again, we still had to visit the Southern Cape as well. We were running so out of time because I think we just stayed too long in the new areas because we never had seen it before. And that's why, it was just a poor scheduling decision, I guess. So for this area, there needs to be a little building with a huge aviary next to it. I'll add a picture of it in the bottom right as well here. And then you can see what it should look like in the end. So again, I'm using the mesh barriers to build the sides of it, but sadly there are no meshes to build roofs. So a few mesh pieces would be really awesome to be able to build this kind of building easily. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use straight ropes to actually complete the roof, which I have done for about 90%, but only the easy sides, because it's quite a tedious process to build it. As you can see here, I'm just measuring, remeasuring, and it's just a lot of like redoing what you've already done, and it takes so much time. So I'm not gonna complete the roof entirely because it's just too tedious, and I'm really hoping for like a mesh piece at some point, which we can just easily add, because this rope process is just a pain in the butt. And yeah, I'm not gonna finish it completely. You'll see. It's quite a hard process, and if someone has a better way of doing this, then please do let me know in the comments down below, because I couldn't be bothered with finishing this, and now it looks incomplete, of course, but there are no animals into it, so there's not going to be any guests looking at it, so it doesn't really matter to me for the moment, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out in the end, even though it's not completely finished. So guys, this was the entire episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me show you some pictures of what it looks like in the end. And I really do hope you enjoy it, and I will see you in the next one. And do smash that like button. I hugely appreciate it. And guys, have a great day.